As the global political landscape shifts, the prospect of U.S. disengagement from Europe under a second Trump administration has sparked deep concerns among policymakers and analysts. The possibility of America scaling back its security commitments in Europe, whether as a deliberate policy shift or a negotiation tactic, raises critical questions about the future stability and defense posture of the European Union. If Washington distances itself from European affairs, will the continent be left vulnerable, or will this serve as an opportunity for Europe to fortify its own defense capabilities? The threat of abandonment, political and security ramifications. The return of Donald Trump to the White House could redefine transatlantic relations in unprecedented ways. His administration's initial signals, exploring negotiations with Russia without European involvement, questioning NATO's relevance, and imposing punitive trade policies, suggest that U.S. support for Europe is far from guaranteed. European leaders now fear that Trump's rhetoric may translate into tangible actions, potentially leading to reduced military presence and strategic disengagement from the region. Historically, Trump has criticized European nations for underinvesting in their own defense, pushing allies to meet their NATO spending commitments. However, his administration also opposed independent European defense initiatives, such as the Permanent Structured Cooperation, PESCO, and the European Defense Fund, EDF, viewing them as threats to U.S. defense industry interests. The contradiction between demanding more European defense spending while resisting European autonomy complicates transatlantic security cooperation. Scenario 1: The transactional approach, a new order of bilateralism. One possibility is that Trump 2.0 will not fully disengage, but rather use the threat of withdrawal as a leverage tool. This tit-for-tat strategy could see the U.S. selectively reinforcing ties with individual European nations based on their willingness to purchase American weapons, make trade concessions, and align with U.S. geopolitical interests. This would erode multilateral defense frameworks, effectively fragmenting European security cooperation into a web of bilateral agreements with Washington. In such a scenario, European nations eager to maintain U.S. support might increase defense budgets, but prioritize American defense contractors over indigenous European military industries. Countries unwilling or unable to comply could face punitive measures, including troop withdrawals or economic reprisals. This approach would drive deeper divisions within Europe, weakening collective defense efforts and reducing NATO's cohesion. Scenario 2: A full strategic retrenchment, Europe on its own. A more drastic scenario involves a complete U.S. military and strategic retrenchment from Europe, allowing Washington to shift focus to China and the Indo-Pacific. This could mean a significant reduction in American military assets in Europe, including the withdrawal of tactical aircraft, naval presence, and missile defense systems. European nations would be left to shoulder the full burden of deterring Russian aggression while continuing to support Ukraine without direct U.S. backing. This scenario aligns with strategic recommendations from Trump-affiliated advisors, who argue that Europe should take full responsibility for deterring Russia, while the U.S. prioritizes its own national defense and economic interests. If implemented abruptly, this policy could expose critical vulnerabilities in European defense, particularly in intelligence sharing, logistical support, and rapid military deployment capabilities. The European response: building a robust defense infrastructure. Regardless of which scenario unfolds, Europe must act decisively to prepare for a future where U.S. security guarantees are no longer absolute. The European Union and NATO must take several steps to ensure stability and security in a post-U.S. dependent era. 1. Increased defense spending and industrial coordination. The EU must support member states in ramping up defense investments through innovative financing mechanisms, such as collective borrowing or a dedicated European defense fund. This should include the development of strategic military capabilities that have historically been reliant on U.S. support, such as missile defense systems and airlift operations. 2. Strategic autonomy through collective capabilities. To counterbalance a potential U.S. withdrawal, Europe must invest in military infrastructure that ensures operational independence. This includes enhancing intelligence sharing mechanisms, expanding joint military exercises, and fostering cooperation among European defense industries to reduce reliance on American-made weaponry. 3. Strengthening NATO's European pillar. While NATO remains the cornerstone of European security, member states must take greater ownership of their defense responsibilities. A more robust European presence within NATO would provide a counterbalance to U.S. unpredictability while reinforcing transatlantic ties in a way that does not leave Europe entirely exposed to American policy shifts. 4. Deterrence through readiness and resilience. In light of ongoing threats from Russia and other adversaries, Europe must build a deterrent force capable of defending itself without immediate U.S. intervention. This requires expanding troop numbers, stockpiling critical military supplies, and ensuring rapid deployment capabilities in case of a security crisis. Conclusion: the need for a united and proactive Europe. The prospect of a U.S. withdrawal from Europe presents both risks and opportunities. While the potential loss of American military support would create immediate security concerns, it also serves as a wake-up call for Europe to take full control of its own defense destiny. The EU must act now to establish a credible, independent security strategy that safeguards the continent from both external threats and internal divisions. In the face of uncertainty, European leaders must move beyond rhetoric and embrace concrete actions to ensure collective security. The future of European defense should not be dictated by U.S. political fluctuations, but by a long-term vision of strength, unity, and resilience. Whether Washington remains engaged or disengages, Europe's path forward must be one of self-reliance and strategic foresight.